Moving on with the news now, a group within the All Progressives Congress known as the Tinubu Mandate Group, Ondo and Ekiti States chapters say there's nothing wrong with the presidential candidate of the party, Bola Tinubu, picking a Muslim as a running mate. Coordinator of the group, Olufemi Bakare, at the meeting of the group in Akure, says the APC presidential candidate would always be fair to all religions in the country. Bakare, who is also a pastor, describes Tinubu as a man who has Christians around him and has been showing love for Christianity. He says Nigeria is in dire need of capable leaders and that the issue of religion should not overshadow competence.
Well, let's bring in Raj News analyst Professor Abiodun Adeniyi as we dissect this issue further. Professor, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the news. What do you make of all of this argument?
Well, there's so much tension, so much hoopla, but I think it's getting to a time where we need to be a little more circumspect about our positions, And of course, we were expecting it, no doubt, and when we saw our PDP threw its own presidential ticket open on the ground that they wanted to choose from a place where they will be more guaranteed of victory. We should also expect that APC can also be in the position where they will think that they want to make choices, or the choice of a presidential, vice presidential candidate, specifically, that will help them probably win the presidential race. So it's all a matter of calculation, really. And of course, politicians have a way of doing their things. Politics is the art. It's not necessarily about the rational. It's the art of the possible, and we see them all the time displaying this. And when I look at Tinubu, for instance, it doesn't strike me as a bigot. It strikes me as a liberal person, as a political engineer, an experienced, exposed person. And I also see Kashim Shettima in that light as well, an exposed person, a two-time governor, a deep, penetrating intellectual with arithmetic memory, from the pronouncement I've had him made, on television. So I'm not looking at these personalities from the prism of religion. I'm seeing them largely as, as statesmen, who want to make their mark. And that's why I think that we should probably imagine these as a time of experiment. Maybe that experiment will lead us to begin to think less of our cleavages, of our classifiers and dividers, and probably help us to focus more on performance and productivity, for once as a people and as a nation concerned about nation building.
Well, like they say, there's no better time to do a good thing than now. But is Nigeria ripe enough for this experiment that you talk about, same faith ticket? Is Nigeria ripe enough at a time when there seems to be this widening, of the gaps between the ethnic groups? Well, mutual distrust almost on every side. Can Nigeria afford this now?
I'm not sure there can ever be a right time for experiments to be performed, really. And of course, all these things are just psychological constructs, that we can deal with through physical action. And if we have leaders who are ready to bail the cat, who are ready to, who are courageous enough to take some drastic decisions, that can bring about this change that we've been talking about, why not? And of course, references have been made severally to the Kaduna experiment, where Governor El-Rufai, picked a Muslim running mate.
Deputy.
And of course, over the last 3.5 years or so, there's no evidence in Kaduna, to the best of my knowledge, that on account of that, Christians have been underrepresented, in the political calculation of Kaduna State because of that.
Yeah, but
so if it can happen at that level, what's really the problem? What's the fear, really?
But the same example of Kaduna, example of Kaduna that you just cited, I mean, those on the other side are saying, because this experiment, as far as they're concerned, it hasn't worked in Kaduna, and if same faith ticket is the case at the center, you may have the Kaduna situation happening across the country. Don't they have, a justification for their position?
No, I think because I think these things are just fear, And I think, I don't want to believe that these leaders, you know, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu and Kashim Shettima,
yes,
don't know what they are doing. You know, even the APC, I don't believe they don't know what they are doing. I want to be assured, you know, largely that if they win, for instance, there are other ways in which, you know, sections that are concerned or that are aggrieved can be assuaged, you know. And of course, without being necessarily supportive of APC, there are options as well. PDP is there, Labour Party is there. You know, if you're not pleased with APC, you can go for all these other parties.
Exactly.
You know. But do not forget that, you know, this is vice presidential choice. It will always come with controversy. The only one that has been less controversial, really, is the Labour Party choice, you know. That's the least controversial.
Even
of
the
three.
PDP was controversial.
It was controversial.
Okay.
So these controversies are natural. But this one is
Okay.
special because it is religious.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, the hoopla really, I understand religious can be, it can arouse passion, concerns, you know, but we need to, there has to be a time, you know, where we have to rise above these dividers, think more about performance, productivity, and possibility of individuals and prospective leaders, you know, rather than where they come from and their origin. The time to start may just be now.
Because once upon a time, it didn't matter your religion or your region. Under the military, we've seen it. We had the Yakubu Gowon and his chief of staff, supreme headquarters, same faith. We had a Buhari, Diagmo, and then we had most recently, of course, Abiola and King Ibe, and he even attempted one with Buhari, Tinubu that didn't eventually play out. So it really didn't matter at a time. Who would you say should be held responsible for this? Is it just a ploy by the political elites to heighten these lines during every election cycle? Or are the people also to blame?
No, the people are not to blame because they have leaders, you know, and politicians are largely self-interested people. I don't want to use the word self-centered. They're self-interested people. Oftentimes, you know, they put their own interest above other people's interest, unfortunately, and it's even more so in our own clients. So they're doing their calculations, like we said earlier, and that calculation, rightly or wrongly, you know, is making them to think that, but APC particularly, that if they have a Muslim candidate from the north, it will help them better, you know, to win that election. You know, with greatest respect to those who are feeling bad, you know, the Christians in the north, the clergies who have been speaking brilliantly, no doubt, you know, their concerns are appreciated. But again, they should also think about the future. Perhaps in the future, they should be thinking of, you know, supporting you know, a Christian presidential candidate, if with greatest respect to them, if they are really very concerned. I was wondering that, for instance, what happened to Vice President Oshibajo? What happened to Pastor Tunde Bakare? Why didn't they get all the kind of support, you know, so that we won't have the problem we're having now in APC? You know, why are we now having it in the negative, such that there's tension in the land and we are raising all kinds of sentiments that is inimical to the peace and stability of the country? We probably don't need it. And that's what
well,
we're
like someone said,
for us to be a little more circumspect.
Yeah, like some analysts have said, really, it's all about good governance. If there was a perception that, you know, Nigerians have been getting the so-called dividends of democracy, maybe it wouldn't really matter to any Nigerian where anyone comes from or their religious affiliations. Should it be party first? This Machiavellian tendency, you know, the means, you know, the end justifies the means. Is that really what it should be, or should it be nation first? And if it's nation first, what do you think is the sentiments of Nigeria right now that should reflect in the way that candidates pick their, you know, running mates?
Well, you see, all these things work together. They actually interact, you know, in a dialectics. You know, the individual cannot work without the state, and of course, there's an institution that comes between the individual and the state, and that institution can be economic, can also be political. In this instance, there are political institutions, the political parties. You know, but of course, the political parties are inanimate. You know, they are being powered by the individuals, the politicians, and the strength and influence of the politicians sometimes rub off, you know, on the political parties. In this case, the interest of APC presidential candidate is rubbing off, you know, on the political party, APC as the case could be. And that's why he thinks that his preference, you know, from analysis, from strategic discussions and all of strategic projections, you know, a Muslim person, a candidate from the north will help him better. And I'm saying that it is better for us to look at these individuals, their qualities, you know, their pedigrees, which is quite rich. Of course, they have so many grounds on which they can campaign, irrespective of their downside. They also have problems, no doubt. I'm not glossing over that. They have things that we need to interrogate them over. You know, but as long as they can, if we interrogate them, and of course they can show promise, you know, a promise to take us out of the woods performance, such that the fear that we have now to move from one place to the other, you know, the concerns we have over joblessness, you know, our economy being on the tailspin, you know, youth unemployment, all the problems, crisis in the education sector that you mentioned earlier on, you know, crisis all over the place. I mean, if they can find solutions to these things, I think we'll begin to think less of our dividers.
Thank you so much.
Inclusive.
Associate Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Bayes University and the Rise News analyst. Thank you, as always.